Hi, everybody. Andreas, compulsive overeater. Wonderful to be with you all today. Um, I felt moved by my higher power to talk about the healing power of living in the steps and not just working in them, as a way of keeping that daily reprieve, that quiet with food, which is possible. The big book shows that that is possible, and this way of living is possible. But I want to start with the disease, living in the disease. My life was just vague and mushy. I had low self-esteem, constant fear, anxiety, and depression. I just thought that's who I was as a person. I was just doomed to a life of difficulty. At age 9, my weight ballooned. I would eat 3 heaped soup bowls of breakfast on top of my 3 meals a day, and then the snacking started as well. And they weren't just snacks; they were epic. And I mean, for me, binging created a safety zone around me, and that protected me from the unsafe adults that I felt it were in my life. I'd put on 3 to 5 stone, that's 19 to 32 kilos, or 42 to 70 pounds. And I'd do that once or twice a year, up until, well, 2022. And I found from a young age, when I got a lock on my bedroom door, that I could escape online and I could hide my body and insecurity. I could be anybody who I wanted to. And I don't mean that in a creepy way. I mean that I could hide the things that I didn't like, and I could show what I thought would earn me love, because that's what I found before program. It was all about earning love by trying to be good enough, but I never was. As a teenager, I had a friend that visited me for 2 weeks, and I was just too busy being in front of the computer. I didn't even know he was there. I forgot that this actually happened. And he would come home from school, he would sit on my bed, and he would just teach himself to juggle because he was so bored. That's how clocked out of life I was. And I had the false belief that to be gay and loved meant to be thin. And that's what led me to over exercising and damaging my body through running too much, doing back to back exercise classes and weight training, trying to empty myself as much as possible. And of course, this disease is progressive, it gets worse. So I was desperate and on my knees. I was suicidal. And on the 16th of July, 2022, I came to program because 2 days before that, I heard God tell me that I deserved better than this. But I wouldn't have said God at the time because I was a giant scoffer. I didn't believe in any of that stuff. And to anybody who doesn't like the word God or higher power or He, I invite you to use whatever pronoun that you like for higher power. And newcomers, please don't be put off. Just have an open mind, I would suggest, and listen to people's recovery. You don't have to believe anything. That's a wonderful thing about this program. We all get to have our own experience. So one of the things which I reflect on is the idea of living in the steps and not working in the steps. I've heard them referred to as the wall steps. I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And I've got to do this and I've got to do that. That's what my fear led me to at the beginning. I was like, right, I've got to do this, get a perfect scorecard, impress my sponsor, and then I'll be done. But this is the very same reason why self-help doesn't work for me personally, because self-help has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If I'm just working the steps and I arrive, then what does my life look like afterwards, right? When that finishes, there's a void in my life, and that void will be filled by returning to the food. We hear on page 30 that the idea that somehow, someday he will control and enjoy his compulsive eating is the great obsession of every abnormal eater. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing, and many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. I thought that I was a weak person. I'm not. I'm a strong-willed person, stubborn as a mule. And that's why I'll do the wrong thing repeatedly over and over again. I need this program, and I need this as a way of living. And working with my sponsor recently, we've had a really beautiful conversation about surrender versus being surrendered. At first, I was like, oh, this is interesting. What does this mean? And reflecting on it and reflecting on the experience, what I've come to see is that surrendering is an active act of self-will. It's active and it involves effort. And what it means when I'm surrendering, I'm not actually surrendered. I'm in control and I'm pretending that God's driving, but actually I've got both hands on the steering wheel and I'm actively holding on to self-will. And that for me is what working the steps means. When I'm working the steps, part of me is like, oh God, do I really have to do this? Oh, I've got step 4 today. Do I really have to do this? There's this distance between what my higher power wants for me so that I can experience peace and serenity and what I want. I'm having this tug of war and I'm wasting all of this energy. And it's really funny because lots of my fears that come up are, I'll have a suggestion by my sponsor, and the first reaction will be, "Oh, do I have time to do this? This sounds like a lot. Oh, don't you realize I have a busy life?" But actually, when I just pause, that pause action until serenity emerges, when I look at fear, false evidence appearing as real, what I see is that a lot of energy and a lot of time that I will spend in my day will be worrying about things like, will I make it? Will I have enough time? Will I have enough energy? And this is self-will run riot. It's like leaving the tap on and wondering why I have a big water bill. And it's the same with my energy. And it's the same with my love and my connection, and having a useful life. And what do I mean by having a useful life? Having a rich and nourishing life. I was malnourished before. It had nothing to do with the food, had everything to do with the fact that I was like a leaky boat. Instead of repairing the hole, I was busy with small cups of water trying to empty the water out of the boat. And I just couldn't see that it was this insistence that I wasn't good enough. So I don't just connect with a higher power as a tick box activity. I do it because it gives me a quality of life that is beautiful and phenomenal and way beyond anything that my fears and my thinking can ever bring me then. So what do we mean then by being surrendered? Well, when we're surrendered, God is in control and it's passive and it requires no effort. I've already arrived. God's in control and I'm not reacting from self-will, and I'm accepting that everything that already is here is. Oh, okay, that's happened. This is happening right now. Okay, it is. Can I accept that? So I'll give you an example. I was in the airport yesterday coming back from Portugal, and there was this kid screaming really loudly for about 40 minutes. Fear and self-will would go, oh, this is inconvenient. I don't like that. But I turned to my higher power and I said, God, I am surrendered. I am surrendered with you. And as I close my eyes and I say this now, I feel this peace that fills my whole body. And I felt this love expand from my body for this child and for the parents and for everybody in that room. And I was at peace. I accepted everything as it was. And by the way, this isn't some phony way of like false positivity, trying to accept things and just allowing anybody and everything to walk all over us. No, I'm not saying that. But can I start from the point where I'm like, reality is reality? I may not like it. It's okay that I'm afraid. It's okay. I embrace myself in my fear. But can there be peace here too? And what my higher power shows me is that, yes, there can be that peace there. Because actually, this program teaches me that I am so powerless over my disease. I'm never, ever cured. I have recovery, but it's a one day at a time thing. And actually, being surrendered is actually passive acceptance of powerlessness, and it's relying on God alone. It doesn't mean that I don't do anything. It means that I don't need to escape this moment. And as an addict, I need to slow down because in self-will, I want to run the show. I've got some sassy, clever thing to say that I've repeated and rehearsed before, but it's not going to bring me peace. And so to the person who grew up chronically scared, chronically unsafe, this ongoing work of 12-step living is about emptying myself of self-will and letting God in daily. And instead of finding myself unsafe, finding myself so held, loved, and embraced in a way that touches every corner of my body and touches every corner of my life, that turns me into this person who is this person that talks to everybody now? I used to sit down and feel the loneliest person. I used to hate going to the gym. I'd suffocate in loneliness. Now people can't stop saying hello to me out of love, and I love them too. Page 11, Bill's story. God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. And this is what I learned by living the steps, by embodying them, by recognizing that this is soothing, healing, nourishing nectar for my mind, for my body, and my spirit. The truth heals me. This is brave work. But you know what? God protects me. God never steers me to the rocks. And God's perspective and will for me is the best fit for me. Oh, those clothes fit better than anything that I've ever known. And this is what working with a sponsor in truth brings. It's not always comfortable. For a highly sensitive ADHD, autistic person with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, it's not always easy hearing something which contradicts something which has given me confidence and stability. But my sponsor's there to show me that the confidence and stability that I have standing on the sand is nowhere near as good as the confidence and stability that I can get standing on God's solid ground. And that safety and prosperity comes through actually trusting God and loving others. I did it the other way around before. I made everyone else God, and I was wondering why people were frightened of me. I was expecting people to be perfect. They couldn't live up to my standards, and I never lived up to them either. And I grow by keeping going on the open seas. And what do I mean by this? When I'm in the disease, I'm in the harbour. This beautiful boat that could sail and enjoy the world, stuck in harbour, stuck in my disease. And so going through the steps, living in the steps, I leave the harbour and I trust God and I choose to recover from this disease. But I don't just go out to the open seas and then just stop moving. I keep traveling through living in the steps on a daily basis. And this requires active communication and collaboration with God. And that willingness, that open-mindedness, and that honesty. Page 85 says, what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. And I think one of the most precious things that I've come to recognize is it's okay for me to be scared. It's okay for me to balk at the suggestions of my sponsor. But it's not okay for me to press full stop at the end of that if I want to keep this daily reprieve. I get to go away and pause. I get to breathe. I get to pray. I get to sit down and do two-way prayer, a wonderful, loving conversation with my higher power, and go, God, I'm scared. What am I not seeing here? What have I left on the table today? And just as I did in the airport yesterday when I felt sad that I was leaving the gorgeous sunshine of Portugal, right? I'd placed my faith temporarily in lack. I wasn't trusting God. And I said, God, increase in me the desire to be free and at peace, and decrease in me the fears which keep me stuck in disconnection. And this profound peace just rose up inside my body. And this love ached throughout my body. And I walked on the holy ground where I stood. And if this sounds all weird and woo-woo, I would have taken the mick out of myself too, nearly 2.5 years ago when I came into program. But you know what? God has done for me what I could not do for myself. I'm not going to question this. I don't need to understand how the sun works. But when I surrender it and lay back on that wonderful grass, I'm too busy enjoying God's love for me and asking God, how would you have me be? How can I be of service? and enjoy this wonderful life just as it is today. So I know this is my time. I'll just finish by saying, newcomers, keep coming back, find a sponsor, and give yourself the gift of a lifetime. If somebody like me can do it, so can you. Thank you.